Alrighty. Thanks for tuning in. Um, this is probably not going to be a short video, even though I want it to be a short video. Um, but this is going to be. I just feel compelled that I have to make this video. And the reason I'm feeling compelled to make this video is because of this. I just want to say this: the recording studio, first of all, it's being more, it's being blown out to be more overly hyped with a lot of interest than it needs to be. Yes, I think we're all recording with fascinating. We're all fascinated with with some sort of process when it comes to recording studios. You probably heard it even you probably heard it from artists like, yeah, I'm getting back in the studio, or you've probably heard just producers, I got to get back to the studio. You probably hear these terms all the time, or the way people talk, but you just have to keep in mind that the recording studio is nothing more than a music producing factory. And it's whether you do it in a building with some actual analog or gear, or you're going to use a virtual one like your DAW, virtual. That's why I call them virtual recording studios. The choice is, there are going to always be people out there that are going to criticize the way people do stuff because they feel they should do it the way they do it. And a lot of times the problem with that is you have people that are just completely biased, and they're not very open-minded. So a lot of times you have to ignore that, because it's like this. In the end, I'm going to paraphrase what Andrew Scheps said. The number one most important statement in this whole important thing. This is why I am have a tremendous amount of respect for Andrew Scheps and his approach. Andrew Scheps said one statement: all that matters is what's coming out of the speakers. So that's what it is. What's coming out of speakers is going to be the end result, because what comes out of those speakers is what people are going to hear. The people themselves do not know to care. They don't know the millions and millions of people that are not into music production and recording and everything else and gear. They don't know what 1176 compressor is, or the plug-in. They don't even know what a plug-in is. A lot of people don't even know what a DAW is. It's kind of like when I have friends that come over and they see all this stuff in here. They just see a lot of. They're like, man, that's what's up with all what's up with all that? What do you? They don't know what it does. They kind of know they kind of put two and two. It was some sort of recording studio, but I mean, that's the blank look. It's like if you walked into an unknown business and you looking at how they do things, and you're gonna look at like, because you don't know what it does. Only the people that working it knows what it does, or the people that built the stuff knows what it does. So the point I'm trying to make with this is that we got to quit overemphasizing like the recording studios, the be all. The recording studios are great, and it's great when people go and do recording studio tours. They're awesome to watch because people like us are interested in it. But if your girlfriend or your wife or whatever, and if if you're female, your boyfriend or your husband or whatever case, and they're not into what you're into, and they can care less. They're in the other room while you're in your recording studio doing what you do, and they're in the other room, they can care less. He or she's in there doing their music thing. That's all it is to them. And I'm saying all that because in the end, it really, when you see all the celebrities, like, the ones that are passed away and the ones that are current, whether you've seen Prince, Luther Vandross, Stevie Wonder, Usher, Alicia Keys, Gloria Estefan, U2, Rolling Stones, AC/DC, Metallica, Carrie Underwood, Trisha Yearwood. I'm just naming names. Everyone I name, when you think of them, a recording studio don't even come to your mind. And when I say Carrie Underwood, the first thing that comes to your mind is how great she is as a country and western singer. That's the first thing, and you've seen her perform on stage. Or you might have seen her when she would perform American Idol. Or when you think of Prince, the first thing you think of him is up there on the guitar. That's the first thing you think of when you think of Prince. Or you see Michael Jackson, the first thing you think is Michael Jackson dancing, say it, dude, and all this stuff, right? He's doing all that, right? You do not think of Michael. You do not associate Michael Jackson with any microphones, recording consoles, anything like that. That's not even. I know I don't. Whenever you tell me AC/DC, I don't think of them. Because first of all, I don't even know what recording studio they went to. Most of these artists, you don't even know what recording studios because they've been to multiple ones. So you don't associate them with. It's like when I see, it's kind of like I never knew that Van Halen recorded at Sunset, and they recorded at Sunset Sound in the 80s. Going to 70s and 80s, early 80s. I never knew that until I watched some Sunset Sound recording studio documentaries and how they were talking about, and how Warren Hewitt talked a little bit about how AC/DC recorded. Other than that, Stevie Wonder recorded at Sunset Sound. I never knew Prince, spent locked out Sunset Sound recording studio for a year. Never knew that. And they put a basketball court they put a basketball court. That's why if you watch Sunset Sound tours and they're walking through the little outside area between the different studios, you see a basketball rim. They put that in for Prince, because Prince, when he was in his spare time, when he wasn't in the studio recording, he was out there playing basketball. So all the stories you heard about Prince playing basketball was true. But the thing is, that's the point that I'm trying to make with this, is that we just become so caught up with studio and gears that recording studios are very, very simple. They really are. People just make them. The problem is the internet is the confusing part, because it's so overflooded with so many different directions. You got people making the top 5 best microphones, and those aren't the 5 top best microphones. Then you have some people say the best microphone is the one that you got. Because what they're trying to say is learn how to use the microphone properly first before you start worrying about what's the best microphone to buy. And then you got some people saying, yes, you can do top of the line recordings with just $300. And there are people that they're telling you, no, you need. Then there are other there are other YouTube channels telling you need to go to a commercial studio with an API console and loads of outboard gear, and everyone's spinning everyone in so many different directions. You got YouTube channels telling people how to do recordings, and in their mind they're telling you, okay, you'll have people that will click in on their channel, and this guy, it may be some YouTuber that made a channel like how to record the best vocals or whatever, how to record guitars or whatever. And you might have people that go in there and say, well, how to, or their title of their video might go something like how to create great mixes or whatever. Something, it could be a title like that for the YouTube channel. And so a lot of people will click on it out of interest, because they're like, let's say this guy, he just got finished doing some tracks on his MPC, and he click on that and see MPC mixes, And it's, and the guy and this guy or girl, they created some beats and they spliced up some samples or whatever, and they did these tracks on this MPC or whatever. And next you click on this mix and this guy's saying how to get great mixes, and he's saying, yeah, what I'm doing is I'm gonna bring up all my my overheads and snare, and then I'm gonna kick in, kick out. And the first thing you're thinking, wait a minute, I don't have any kick in, kick out. I just used a low end kick here and snare and some claps and some or whatever. I'm just using maybe a little sample sound here, or I did some little, spliced a little sample here, maybe a little samples here or whatever. That's what I did. And you talk, and then he's like, yeah, I'm gonna bring up my bass, and I gotta bring up my first set of guitars, my second set of guitars, I'm bringing up vocals, and I'm gonna bring in all my effects. And this guy's telling that, and what I did was I mic'd the, and now you're thinking, wait a minute. And the guys, the next thing you start playing the track, and next when you play a track is he's like metal, like wait a minute. I'm not trying to learn how to mix metal. I'm trying to learn how to mix my hip hop track. I got this 808 and it's blowing my speakers up. How do not realizing that you gotta first change the volume level so you're not blowing the speakers, and you might want to add a little compressor on it to control the dynamics, because a lot of people think compressors, you got these guys talking about the holy grail of like the Fairchild 670 or the LA2A or the 1176. These are compressors they always talk about, or distressor. They always talk about these certain types of compressors, and not realizing, then you'll see the guys that on some of these channels talking about as if their audience is a rock audience. That's the problem with the confusion of the internet. And then sometimes you'll go on these studio tours, and these guys, they'll go in, they'll say, man, yeah, we got a whole bunch of keyboards. And you walk in there, and I'm looking at them like, and they'll say it'll be a grand piano, maybe a Hammond B3, and maybe a Wurlitzer and a Rhodes, and maybe a few old school 80s like a Moog or an Oberheim analog synth. In their mind, they got 7-8 synth, and they like, yeah, we get every synth for, so people want to come here and record. People want to come in here and record. Yeah, we got every synthesizer covered. I'm looking as a keyboard player. I've been playing keyboards for 42 years. And I look in their keyboards, and the first thing I'm looking for is modern boards. And like, you don't have any modern boards? I'm thinking, okay, if I was going to come in there and create tracks, or I'm going to do the music the way I do music, I'm looking for the Roland Phantom 6. Or I'm looking for the Korg Kronos, or I'm looking for the Yamaha Montage, or Motif, or a Triton, or a Roland XP80, or something, a Korg Trinity, something, man, Sonic, or something of that type of board. That's what I'm looking for. And you're talking about you got a whole synth, you got an old school analog that takes cables, and you got to turn the parameters, and you think that's synth? And it turns out the studio owner, well, I'm not a keyboard player, I have a whole bunch of, but he's got a whole line of Gibson guitars, or he's got a bunch of Les Pauls or whatever, a bunch of Fender Strats or whatever. I'm like the guy. It turns out the studio owner is a guitar player. He's never played keyboard. He don't know anything about keyboards. He just knows that he saw that, yeah, I know when I went to Capitol or these other large studios, they all have grand pianos, so that must cover the piano. That must cover. Not realizing a lot of R&B players weren't using a lot of grand pianos. A lot of them were using, even if you go to the 80s, a lot of them were using Yamaha DX7s, Roland D50s, ARP 2600s or whatever. They Korg M1s, modern digital boards that already have loads of patches. That's the most common for a lot, especially when you start watching all these bands gigging, or if you went to, some keyboard players integrate both. Some might have an amp Oberheim or Moog, but a lot of them have the most modern boards. Even Herbie Hancock had modern boards, not just old school analog. He had modern digital boards. So these guys, a lot of these studio owners are they're not knowledgeable for every genre. So they, in their mind, they think when they open their recording studios, they're thinking that people are going to come in here, everyone that's going to book their studio is going to be a rock band. or they're thinking, so they prep their recording studio for a rock band. So what I'm saying is that the internet, when you're trying to learn, that's why I said not just because someone opens up in a recording studio doesn't mean it's going to be a fit for the genre of the person. It's like, I would say like this. If I was going to go to these commercial studios as an example, and I start looking at the walls and I look on there and this recording studio and the acts they've had in there, let's say it's a bunch of independent rock band acts. And I looked on the wall and it could be, they have, because rock bands, they come up with these crazy names like, Death Punk and whatever, or, then of course there's the famous ones like, 9 Inch Nails or Nirvana, or I look in there and I'm looking on the wall and the Nirvana, there's, 9 Inch Nails or whatever. And I'm like, then it takes me, then I go to Atlanta. When I go, if you go to Atlanta, like let's say you go to Patchwork or Studio 9000, you look on there and you start seeing Jay-Z, and all I see is Jay-Z or Beyonce or Alicia Keys, and I start seeing Brandy, and I start seeing these kind of artists, and I see Lil Wayne and Future and all these type of artists, and it gives you a sense of, okay, well, this is what they do. But there's never been a one-fits-all. I've never seen a one-fits-all recording studio. So I guess what I'm trying to say with this whole thing is the recording studio itself. So you got a lot of people that are building home recording studios to fit the needs of what they want to do. So because of that, in the recording studio, everything, the real bare essentials that you need an audio interface, a converter, an AD to DA converter, because it's got to talk to your computer, your PC or Mac. I'm not biased. A lot of people, not only Macs or not only PC or whatever. Pick one. They both can record and they both can do DAWs. It's like this, and get an interface, an audio interface. I would recommend the audio interface, even though a lot of them come with built-in microphone preamps. Unless you have a high-end audio interface with some really nice preamps in it, those are going to be the nicer the more expensive and the nicer the preamps in it. Those are definitely going to get you by a lot better than the budget ones. The budget ones are just going to be okay. They're not going to give you, because part of what makes those preamps and make microphones work is how good the preamps are. I would definitely recommend having at least a decent microphone. I would say, like I was demonstrating with the other video, the Warm 47 Junior is a good place to start. The Rode NT1, NT2A, or, you can buy any of those type of microphones. Just don't buy, I wouldn't recommend a $20 microphone, but you probably can get away, you can probably be decent with even a Behringer B1 would probably be okay. But I would definitely recommend at least looking at a Rode NT1. That's a $200 to $300 microphone. That will put you in the ballpark. And then of course, you're depth with a dynamic microphone, an SM57 or SM58 for dynamic, and maybe one or two ribbon microphones like the Marshall R44 or something like that. One ribbon microphone, and you're covered for a lot of areas. The ribbon microphone being good on certain things like recording acoustic guitars. You can use that ribbon microphone to record vocals. You can use that ribbon microphone to record your guitar cabinet. Because ribbon microphones, they're really good for mid-range coverage. Out of all that, a condenser microphone, like a condenser microphone, it's good for capturing the source, but it's also designed to capture the ambience of the room. So if you're trying to capture the room sound, a good condenser mic is, what you're trying to do. Versus a dynamic mic is more designed to capture the source in front of it. the best. But I would definitely recommend at least a decent preamp. You know, a nice little. You know, you gotta spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, but a nice, even a $200 or $300 preamp, like an Art Pro MPA2, or you got the DBX2 or 386 or something like that. Something that's gonna give you, you know, some nice little warmth, Focusrite. I'm talking about the external preamp, like even the ISA1. It's a little preamp, looks like the little box. Looks like a little box like that. The ISA is called the ISA1. It's the, you know, the Focusrite ISA1. Something like that. I would recommend maybe, you know, to cover that, maybe one nice little external compressor and maybe an EQ or whatever, and you're covered, because then you can, a lot of stuff you can do with the plugins for other stuff, but a nice little vocal chain and a compressor. But that's, other than that, you got your Mac or PC, whatever DAW you want to use, whatever, you know, you don't need 10,000 plugins. You probably only need probably 25 nice plugins, you know, to cover your reverbs, your delays, your EQs or whatever, because the DAW is going to come with some decent DAW plugins. Other than that, just wherever you want to, you know, set up your recording space, and you're set. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you definitely need studio monitors, because everything's subjective in price. Everything's subjective in price. You know, you don't have to have $25,000 studio monitors. You, in this day and age, you can probably get away with a nice set of $200 or $300 studio monitors, because that's, most people are doing this in their home. But they've made the recording studio process more complicated than it needs to be, because there's so many people trying to tell people how to do this on the internet. There is literally thousands of videos telling you what's the best, what gear to buy, how to mix drums, how to mix, whatever, how to mix. It's so much, it's overwhelming. I look at this stuff and I know what I'm doing, and I can get overwhelmed with the amount of videos that people are putting out. I look at, every time I turn around, it's, you got recording studio tours or whatever. Let me tell you, let me end the video like this. The essentials when you go into a commercial studio, they're going to have the essentials. They definitely need, they're going to have a console. Most will. Some studios have gotten away from the console because they're going to use the internal mixing console in the DAW. But there are a lot that still use a console. Some of them will maybe use the mixing console, or maybe a DAW controller to control the mixing in the mixing console, in the DAW. So they'll have a controller. Some people will be happy just using the keyboard and the mouse. Everyone likes to work different. Some people will actually have a control surface, like an Icon or the Avid. Looks like a mixer, but it's designed for that, or maybe the SSL Nucleus or something like that. They might want to use that, but overall the actual analog console, or they're going to use the internal DAW's mixer. But you're going to use one of the two. So that's a choice. Some studios are going to have, you got to have the tape machine, or you're going to have a hard disk recorder, or you're going to use the DAW for the hard disk in your PC or Mac. That's what people use. So if you're going to use your PC or Mac, you're going to need an AD to DA converter. So you got all they're going to have that. So they have they have the console, the tape machine, the converter. And then when you start seeing all that outboard gear, what we call it, all the stuff in the racks, right? All this stuff in the racks are simply choices. That's all it is. Because there's only 5 tools basically that all engineers use. They're going to use a preamp. They're going to use an EQ. They're going to use dynamics. And then they're going to use some sort of reverb effect processor unit, or they might actually use rooms, chambers, hallways, plates, or whatever. They might use real room, whatever the case, to create their reverbs, and delay units. And they have all kinds for everything from a Space Echo, but all that stuff is just a choice. So when you walk in and see all the outboard gear, all you're doing is looking at the same thing, and it's like they'll have maybe 10, 12, 15 different types of compressors. But the thing is, even though it's 15 different types of compressors, they're all still compressors. They all compress a certain way. But the object is to compress and control the dynamics and peaks. That's why they all say gain reduction and peak reduction, and they're designed to reduce peaks and dynamics. So it's a compressor. It's a sound compressor. But as it compresses the sound, it's making a sound. And some compressors are preferred on how it's making the sound as it compresses. As it's changing the sound, as it's compressing, they have a desired compressor. They like how they hear the sound being compressed. They have a preferred. So some people like the way a 160 compresses drums and how it makes the drum sound as they compress it. Some people would rather have a distressor. They like the way it sounds when it compresses the drums, or they might want the way they like the compressors compressing a bass guitar. Some people like the way the distressor on a bass. Some people like the way they use the distressor on vocals. They might like the LA2A on vocals. But they're doing is each compressor will change the tone of how it compresses in a different way that may be desirable to the engineer. But they're all the same thing. They're all compressors. The same thing when you see a rack of equalizers. They all equalize. They just the way the equalizers is a choice. Do I want to use that equalizer to change the way I want to equalize the tones, or do I want to use that one? Which one do I want to use? Well, I like the way that one. That's all you're seeing when you see racks of gear. You're just seeing choices. Some people have more choices than others. It's the same thing with plugins. Some people like the way Fab Filters EQ sound. Some people like Isotope. Some people like Sound Toys. But it's all just choices. But the thing is they're just essentials. You're just recording a source, an instrument or vocals in a space, the live room, whatever, maybe your beer room, wherever. That's all it really is. And it's going to have to go through the preamp, whether it's a console's preamp, because microphones are low level signals. You have to bring them to line level. You have to make them loud enough. That's what you hear that term. It's confusing sometimes. Microphone bring it to line level. What do you mean? Oh, you just got to make it loud enough. Line levels are usually loud enough. Mic levels are usually too low. I need a preamplifier. And the reason why I said preamplifier, you gotta remember when you talk about preamplifiers are basically amplifications. It's going to amplify and make whatever source you're using louder. The more warmer and pleasing, that's why you hear this thing about harmonics and distortion and all this stuff. The more pleasing and warmer, and the more the pleasing of amplifying that signal. This is where better preamps than most basic audio interface preamps. This is why an external preamp usually amplifies it better. It makes it sound better. This is why this is why recording studios know this. This is why they say, well, I'm not going to use audio interface preamps. I'm just going to get a converter. That's why they get like an Avid 192 converter. Those are just converters. It's like my Antelope. It has no preamps in it. It's just a converter. There's a lot of high end. There's some, a lot of Apogee Symphonies or whatever. Some of those high end expensive ones are just converters. Then there are some that come with interfaces. That come with not interfaces. They come with preamps. Some of them have better preamps in them. The more expensive ones have better preamps that are more usable. But the budget ones, it's kind of, you got to think about it. Why does a preamp, when we talk about preamps like 1170 or 1073s or 1081s or whatever, which is basically preamp with an EQ on it or whatever, or they're always talking about the the Universal 610 or the Dakey 90 or we start getting to these, like I got some Joe Meeks, or I got my Avalons or whatever, just whatever those type of preamps, they can get from $300 to $4,000 or whatever the case. Why do they? Because how it warms up, and you're talking about something that has input and output transformers. The transformers is part of the key part of why those preamps make those signals shine. It's the transformers. Bryce that started Warm Audio knew this. He talks about this when he started his Warm Audio company. He said it was the transformer. That's why he started using Cinematic transformers. He talks about that. One of the things he learned is figured it out. Not Cinematic, but Jensen transformers, whatever. Plus the tube circuits for the tube circuit, or a really good op amp, or a solid state circuit. Is one of the key things to APIs with those type of op amp circuits they're using, operational amplifier. But we're talking about amplifying a signal. So that's why preamps are key. But you're talking about recording the source, vocals, a guitar, drums, bass, whatever, horns, whatever. Preamp is the first stage that's going to amplify this to a recordable level, a line level recordable level. After that, it's your choice to go through an EQ if you need to be, or a compressor need to be. Do you need to put a gate or expander on it? From there, it needs to go to the tape machine to be recorded. Once it's recorded, it's going to come back out of the tape machine so you can start mixing what you just recorded. After that, you're ready to. Once you've gotten everything mixed with using more tools, more compressors, more EQs, maybe it's time to put some reverbs and delays to create some effects. You're going to pan stuff left or pan stuff right, things like that. It's time to create a 2-track master. And that 2-track master is what's going to be ready to be mastered. And once it's mastered, they're going to put compressors and limiters, EQs to even when it comes to mastering, they're going to do some stuff with limiters, compressors, and EQs to really make it sound like a polished product. Once it sounds like a finished product, it's ready to be distributed. That's the whole recording process in general. So it's just learning that process and doing it well. And there are people that are new to this. There are people that are new to this and they don't understand how to make their stuff sound like a polished product. And not everyone you can go to, because it's like, for example, if you have a person that all they know is mixed rock, they don't understand how hip hop music is supposed to sound. They're not going to know how to mix it. And vice versa. You can have a hip hop person that they know how to make an MPC or a Roland MV8000 or whatever drum machine, or Boss or whatever, if you're just using drums from your DAW, like Reason Studio or Studio One or whatever, and you use all those sounds, and you have to know how it sounds. To know, you have to be familiar with the genre to know how to mix it. It's the same thing. If you have a person that's used to mixing country and western, they're probably not going to be very good at mixing rock. If they know country and western, if that's all they've ever done, they're probably not going to be good at it. So it's kind of like knowing who do I deal with, who do I learn from, if you're trying to learn. But I'm just saying, overall, learn the basics first. It's like, everything's got to go through a preamp stage. Especially if you're going to be dealing with microphones. Preamps is key essential when you're using microphones. And then on top of that, understanding how a condenser mic reacts to sound, understand how a dynamic mic reacts to sound, and understanding a ribbon microphone, how it reacts to sound. Then the way, when you understand how they work, you can make better decisions on what to use. Okay, well, I know how ribbon microphones, how it works, and how it's gonna, the sound. I hate when people do these videos like Signifold videos, and they'll say stuff like, Well, a microphone, what it does is it converts sound into electrical waves that travel down. People aren't that stupid. Or let me rephrase that. People aren't that, they're not that ignorant. In other words, people know what microphones do. They know when people, use a microphone and put it in front of a source, it's going to pick up the source. They automatically know it's connected by a cable. I don't insult people's intelligence by saying, hey, yeah, this microphone is, with all the electronics, is going to convert my voice into electrical signal waves that travels down a line. And people know, they know that. They just want to know how to use the microphone or what choice the microphone to use. That's what people that are learning, it's like they've never seen. People see microphones, the microphones all over the place. So I would never insult no one's intelligence like that. But what I would say is that, let's say, for example, like this condenser microphone, to really get the best out of it, you probably want to at least have a decent microphone preamp. Like I'm using the Art MP2 Studio. It's just a little block, it's this. That's what I'm using. Okay. So I'm using that. Let me see if this thing focuses, because sometimes when it gets off focus, it makes me blur and want us to, so, but anyhow, something like that would definitely make this microphone, because not all preamps are equal, created equal. So now people need to at least know that. That's what they want to know. And what a lot of people don't know is an external preamp. If a console, every console, especially consoles like this, all of them have preamps in it. So it's just a choice. Should I use this preamp or should I use an external preamp? That's why you'll see a rack full of external preamps. If they don't want to use the console's preamp, they'll use an external preamp. All engineers know this. After that, it's a choice. Do I want to use the console's EQ or do I want to use an external EQ? Or do I want to blend the two? You can blend the two. It's a choice. They might want to use that. Or do I want to use a software EQ? Do I want to put some dynamics on it? Because this thing, some of these singers can be loud, or the drums can get loud, or whatever I'm recording can get loud. I better put some dynamics on it to control the loudness. I want to compress some of that sound. So, and then after that, I don't want the sound to keep lingering and bleeding over. So I might want to use a gate. A gate is just a signal switch to turn it on and off. So you need to use a gate. So that's the choices that an engineer is using. And he's doing that on every single channel based on what he's recording, whether it's on a console or he's going to set it up in his DAW. Or she. They're making choices. And then they're getting level checks. Let me check my levels. Okay. I'm looking at my DAW. I got the record. I'm ready to record. Let me look at the levels. Okay. I'm not peaking. I'm not going in the red. It's not going to yellow or red. It's just, maybe negative 10 or 15 just before the zero. The zeros, at unity, it's just a little under that. Okay. That give me a little bit of headroom, some little play area. So that way I can, I got a nice clean signal. I don't have, my noise floor is low. I don't have a excess amount of noise. I got some nice little clean areas. So now I'm ready to record. So I can record that. That's going to come, and I'm going to either record it in mono or stereo. Stereo, a lot of times you'll see two signals fluctuating that way, between left and right. That's in stereo. Or I got one signal, a mono signal, which is a single signal, versus stereo, which is two signals being recorded at the same time, left and right. So some sources required to be stereo, like keyboards, or a pair of microphones capturing the source at the same time. You can record those in stereo. Some people put them on two different separate channels. They might record in stereo and run two microphones into the same input with two different microphones to get a stereo effect. It just depends on how the engineer chooses to do that. Now you're ready to record. Now you set it. Once you got everything set up, you're going to use either stuff on the console or you're going to use some outboard gear. They go, okay, yeah, this is going to be like, I better put a compressor on there. So I'm going to create a chain of equipment. So I'm going to set up my preamp. I'm going to set up a compressor And this is what they're doing in recording studios. So this is kind of what you want to do in your home studio. You want to do this, and if you do a lot of the same stuff that's done in a recording studio, you're going to get pretty much the same results. The only thing that cannot be substituted is the space. Because some recordings, part of the sound is the space they recorded it in. And unfortunately, a lot of home recording studios are not going to have those live room sound spaces. So recording studios learned this too. So they've modeled to give you effect processing plugins to emulate the live room of like Sunset Sound. Like you can get that with the T-Rex. So now you can plug that in on your drums to make it sound like you're recording in that live room. Or, Air Studio just came out with a plugin. Blackbird just created a plugin. All these recording studios are starting to create a plugin of their live room to get the sound. And once you start getting their live room sounds in the plugin form to get the same live room sound that people are recording at those recording studios, done, game over. Now you really can do this at home. If you're recording that type of genre. Now, to wrap it up, because it's been 40 something minutes, the only time your live room sounds are not really necessarily needed is for genres of music like dub, trap, hip hop, EDM, electronic music, techno, or anything that uses virtual instruments. And that's all your recording sources other than vocals. If you're using all virtual instruments, I'm just going to use my MIDI controller and record plug-in sounds. I'm going to use my drum sound, drum sample sound, my drum machine, all various instruments, and that genre of music you're doing, the live room portion is not even important. And the only thing you got to do is make sure you get your vocals recorded. So it's kind of like down to, boiling down, because it's lots of gear. It's kind of like this. Do you need a Sony 800G, Sony C800G? Because everyone said every hip hop and R&B artist used the C800G. No, they didn't. No, they don't. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. No. Vocals can be recorded on pretty much any condenser microphone. Period. Yeah, I said it. Y'all spoiled a lot of it, man. I spent all this money on this W8000 from Warm Audio. I thought that was because it was the replica of the C100, because that's what they told me. No. So many vocals were recorded on the Newman. So many vocals were recorded like on a Newman U87. Lots of vocals are recorded on the Elam 251 Telefunken. Vocals recorded on. There have been vocals recorded on an SM58. There's vocals been recorded on an SM7. There are vocals been recorded on 67, a 47, a TLM 105, a TLM 103. Vocals recorded on all kinds. There have been vocals recorded on a RCA ribbon microphone. So that is false. The thing is, you can go and do rap vocals on a Rode NT1. What's really warming up the vocals, because you probably seen videos like, Dr. Dre uses the C800 because he wants the vocals to sound warm. If you have your stuff running through a nice preamp and a nice compressor to create your vocal chain, you can use a Rode NT1. Because when you start getting all the drum pads and all the other sounds going in your mix, and you put that microphone on, you can use this Marshall MXL V67 microphone to record vocals. If I don't want it so bright, let me turn down the highs a little bit. Or if I want to make it a little warmer, I can just change the EQ curve on this a little bit. And if I switch and go to the other one, whatever, you can change that. Let me change it back to a little bit where I had it a little bit. Just how you change the EQ. I can EQ and change the effect of the microphone. How I get close to the microphone or far away from the microphone is going to change the effect of the microphone. All that matters. How much warmth I'm getting through the tube on here. I can change that. Don't even have to use this tube preamp. I can use the preamp in this. The changing the preamp could change the flavor of the microphone. Then on top of that, I can throw in some plugins and effects to change the microphone. I can throw in some auto-tune, a Melodyne, all that. So to wrap up the video, that's why I felt in the end this was kind of necessary, because the recording process, if you understand the signal flow process to what all recording studios do, and understand that all the outboard gear is just choices of the same thing. They're just different makers of the same thing. And these makers, equalizers, compressors, gates, reverbs, delays, they have multiple choices of it, and they all EQ, compress, delay, reverb in a little different way to change the flavor of it. Just like with all the different preamps, they're just choices of preamps. They all preamplify just in a different way to change the flavor of it. That's all you're seeing. You're just seeing it. Just looks like a lot of stuff, and it is a lot of stuff, but it's a lot of the same stuff. It's kind of like but of a console like this 48 channel, like these are 48 channels. Every single 48 channel is identical. Channel 1 and channel 48 are the exact same design layout. That's what you would see on recording consoles. And then there are some people that have, like SSL, where they're changing 500 series and they'll change different modules to get different flavors of compressors or EQs. It's just different flavors, just like with different choices of plugins. You can use Waves plugins, you can use Slate plugins, you can use IK Multimedia's plugins. They're all EQs and compressors and delays and reverbs and effect units, but they all sound a little different. I like the way that one sounds. I'm gonna use that. I like the way that compressor sounds. I'm gonna use that. I like the way that EQ. That's all you're doing. Another engineer come in, I don't really want to use that one. I like that compressor and I like that EQ. That's all they're doing. So like I said, at the end of the video, sometimes my videos start to turn into like church sermons, right? You think you can get out here by, let's say go to church from 10 or 11:30. Next year, you're not, typical black church. You don't get out until like 1:30. But anyhow, so to sum it up, the recording studio process is the easy part. It's the internet with everything on YouTube and everything else is the confusing part, because they're going to confuse you. They're going to, what studio monitors? My ATCs aren't good enough. I need to get PMC audio, or my PMC audio, let me get Dynaudio, or the Dynaudio, or my Osbergers, or whatever, my, Ocean Ways, or my, my NS10s, or my, just goes on and on and on. My KRKs. The list is astronomical when it comes to the amount of studio monitors and microphones and audio interfaces and mixing consoles and just cables and compressors and reverbs and delay. It just gets astronomical because so many, hundreds of them of every type. It's hundreds of speakers. It's hundreds of microphones. It's like, dang, what do I pick? And then some of these people would, you need to pick, these are the best ones you need to pick. And then you got someone else, no, these are the best ones. And then, oh, no, don't get these. And it can confuse them because some people say, no, these microphones aren't good. But then you watch pro level people using the same gear and then it's sounding amazing. Like, wait a minute. You're trying to tell me don't get these aren't any good, but that professional Grammy engineer is using that microphone and it sounds amazing. I think I'm going to listen to him. I'm not going to listen to you. You have to do that sometimes, and then there's other people that sit there, oh, Clark Technic's junk. Then you got other people saying, oh no, Clark Technic is amazing. Well, this guy told me the Clark Technic stuff was junk. Who should I listen to, him or him? I think I'm gonna lean to the person that says amazing, because let me see what they're doing with to make it. Why does it sound amazing to them? Then it's like, then there's some people gonna say, no, well, that person, they don't know what they're listening for. Their ears aren't that good, whatever. You always gonna have this. Always gonna be critics out there. So just keep in mind, learn the recording studio process. Don't worry about names of gear. Learn, because like I said, there's hundreds of compressors. They all compress. They all just compress in different ways. You just got to figure out how do you like that compressor? Is that compressor, is it working for you? Are your music sounding good with that compressor? I'm not worried about if the other person called the compressor that I use, they called it junk. If the music came out amazing, that's why I don't care about people that when they sit there, it's like I got some Behringer gear, like my Behringer console. I've proved it over and over that console sounds good because I know how to use it. So I'm not worried about people saying, Behringer's junk. Well, that's your opinion. All right, y'all have a good one.